Yet another major Republican congressman has come out and publicly admitted that there is no evidence that President Biden committed an impeachable offense, even as the Grand Inquisitor of the impeachment inquiry, James Comer, continues to suggest that the president is guilty of nameless crimes and is apparently trying to write a book about it. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, this one was kind of funny because it includes James Comer, Republican congressman from Kentucky and perpetual buffoon, and a book deal, right? I didn't know James Comer could read a book, let alone write one. So it's fascinating to me. As you know, he is the leader of the Biden impeachment effort, along with Jim Jordan and Jason Smith. There are 3 House committees involved: Oversight, Ways and Means, and Judiciary. And also, as you know, because we've been covering it, even though it's been the most important political effort, political initiative by the House Republican Conference in the year plus that they've been in the majority, they have failed to produce the goods time and time again, such that they get called out even by the Fox Propaganda Network and Newsmax. As a matter of fact, James Comer won't even appear on certain Fox programs anymore because at least one of the hosts of Fox and Friends, I think it's Peter Ducey's dad, will ask him tough questions and he complains about it. Well, here's the situation. We know, based on fundraising emails and internal reports, that Comer is not going to actually try to impeach the president. He knows he doesn't have the goods. He knows that it probably won't have the votes to even make an impeachment, certainly won't have the votes in the Senate, which you need 2/3 majority to convict the president. So instead, he's reportedly going to recommend actual criminal charges against the Biden crime family, which we don't know if that includes Joe Biden or not, to the Department of Justice. So he's basically trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's like, listen, we did everything right. We're not going to go with impeachment because actually this was actually a real effort to try to produce evidence that Joe Biden committed an actual crime, a prosecutable crime, and we're going to recommend it to the DOJ. This is what he recently had to say on Newsmax just to set the stage.
And then the mainstream media wants to attack me and every second. But we're doing everything right. It's taking a lot longer than I wish it could. But I think we're at the point now where Joe Biden's got some serious legal issues himself.
Joe Biden has some serious legal issues, according to James Comer. And again, note the utter lack of accountability for the widely reported fact, the widespread consensus on both the right and the left, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, that Comer has failed spectacularly. We're doing everything right. Obviously not. Otherwise, you would have produced the goods. You would have been able to name the impeachable offenses, and we'll get to that in just a second. But we now seem to have an additional motivation for Comer. So in addition to the fact that he wants to keep appearing on right-wing news networks, this is a high-profile effort that, this has catapulted him to the forefront of the Republican ranks with respect to notoriety and name recognition. Apparently, he's about to write a book. This is what Axios has to say. James Comer is in discussions with at least one publisher about a book deal at the same time he is leading the Biden impeachment probe. Comer's impeachment investigation of Biden is looking like a dud, but Republicans insist they plan to keep pressuring Biden over family money ties into 2025. A book would be a high-profile way to do that. The project came to light when a source pointed Axios to a page on HarperCollins' website, which shows the placeholder cover for a book by Comer with a provocative title, All the President's Money, and a supposed publication date of September 10th. But no book deal is imminent, or no book is imminent, and there's no book deal. Comer's staff tells Axios, the link was put up in error by HarperCollins. Comer's spokesperson says it was not authorized by Congressman Comer, and he immediately requested it was taken down. But the spokesman admitted that Comer has been in talks with the publisher about a potential book deal. Although he's been, quote, in discussions with HarperCollins about a potential book, he has not entered into a publishing agreement with any publisher, including HarperCollins. So he's like, no, listen, that's not it. Don't worry about it. But also, yeah, we are working. We're in negotiations with some sort of book, which is hilarious to me because obviously he's not going to write a work of fiction. And the only real, event of notoriety that Comer has under his belt is this impeachment effort. Which brings me, of course, to the other clip I want to show you. Actually, there are 2 more, but this one comes from Don Bacon, who is an alleged moderate Republican from Nebraska. He's a congressman who serves alongside James Comer and somebody whose vote Comer would need to impeach President Biden. This is what Bacon had to say just over the weekend when asked about the impeachment by Kristen Welker.
Bunch more to get to, so let me turn to impeachment. Right. You said back in December, quote, once we realize there's not a high crime or misdemeanor, we should move on. Has that moment come in your view?
Well, right now, the lawyers in the committee that I talked to say there's not a specific crime, and you need that for a high crime or misdemeanor. Now, I think the investigation it merited an investigation, put the facts out, let the public look at it, make a determination. And I think it's good to be transparent, especially we're in an election year. So let's put the facts out on the table. But when I talk to the lawyers on the committee staff, they say at this point, there's not a specific crime that's been committed. And
so is it time to drop it, Congressman? Is it based on what you're saying, is it time to drop it?
I don't know if it's times right now, but I do think we're probably nearing the conclusion of this investigation. And I think it was important for the American people to see that, yes, there was $24 million in foreign money that the family raised and all the hidden LLCs that the money was moved around in. Yeah. But that within itself is not a high crime or misdemeanor.
Yeah.
So again, this just goes to show you that even this alleged moderate Republican, he is going out of his way to try not to throw Comer and his fellow Republicans under the bus, right? He's like saying, listen, it's an election year, which is also pretty transparent. We got to have full transparency. The American people need to know. But he's forced to admit again and again that the Comer's attorneys, the people who'd actually be drafting the resolution, working on the language, say that there's no impeachable offense. They have no crime that they can identify. And that President Biden's family, even if you accept the worst case scenario, which is that they tried to influence, or that they cashed in on Biden's name, that in and of itself is not an impeachable offense, particularly if Biden wasn't in office at the time. You can produce no evidence of a quid pro quo where he used government authority or abused government authority to benefit his family. It's just bog standard Beltway, Washington, D.C. nepotism. That's not an impeachable offense for the president. And that's, again, assuming the very worst case scenario. So Comer realizes that this is a dead end. He's just trying to milk this for all it's worth, apparently with a book deal as well as these impotent criminal referrals. A Democratic congressman, last name Garcia, he also had this pretty accurate summation to say about Comer's impeachment efforts against the president. I should also point out that Garcia serves on the House Oversight Committee as well, so he's had a front row seat to this. This is not from the nosebleed section. He has a front row seat to everything that Comer has attempted to do to, drag the president politically, to inflict some sort of grievous political wound in this desperate witch hunt, this desperate search for an impeachable offense. And this is how Garcia characterizes the whole thing.
I mean, I think James Comer is just upset that he's about to lose all his Fox News and News Nation appearances. I mean, James Comer, all he does is go on TV and pretend like he has evidence against President Biden. And we know that he's actually been able to produce absolutely nothing. And at this point, he doesn't even have to listen to us Democrats. He can listen to some of his own Republicans who have been very clear that there's nothing there. And so the whole clown show of the House GOP on the Oversight Committee is in full effect. And James Comer is driving the car. He needs to give it up. He is literally wasting our time week after week after week. We could be talking about real issues. We could be talking about real corruption, like Jared Kushner and his $2 billion gift from the Saudi government when leaving the White House. But he has no interest in actually following corruption or following any type of legislation or enacting legislation that could actually help people. Let's remember, this is all about hurting President Biden and all about helping Donald Trump.
100%. I should also point out that James Comer has admitted in the past that Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who, unlike Hunter Biden, for example, actually had a position in the White House under Trump, had government authority, government power, wielded the power of the federal government. And it looks very much so like he used it to his personal advantage after he left office and got a $2 billion investment from the Saudi government, even when the Saudi government's own wealth advisors urged the Saudi government not to do it because Kushner was such an unreliable, investment that the money would not be, in their expert opinion, in good hands with him. And yet the Saudi crown prince inked the deal anyway, right? And this is when Jared Kushner was effectively the shadow secretary of state dealing with the Saudi governments. That looks hella corrupt, hella unethical. And James Comer has actually publicly admitted that Jared Kushner probably crossed the line of ethics. It's a quote from Comer himself, but he has no interest in actually pursuing that because that's too close to Trump. Trump's a Republican, the leader of Comer's party. It's bad politics. So that Garcia is correct. Comer has absolutely no interest whatsoever in actually pursuing corruption, because if he did, then he would be just as eager to pursue it if the person's last name was Trump, and then the person in question actually wielded power and was never just simply a private citizen like Hunter Biden. I digress. I don't know, again, how long this is going to make it. Again, I just saw that when I saw Comer, and Comer's writing a book, and Comer is convinced that, Joe Biden committed crimes, even if it's not an impeachable offense, but kind of like the mysterious impeachable offense, Comer can't list the crimes. It's hilarious. And it's good to point out because, again, this is an election year. And the reason this impeachment effort is so important, even though there's no substance to it, is because this is what House Republicans, the one thing that they have tried to do as a concerted effort, as a body politic, besides, throwing out their own speaker. This is it. And so this is what we can show to the American people. You and I can make the case to our friends, our family, people, link them this video and be like, this is the one political project that Republicans have attempted to do since 2023. It's been a spectacular failure. Maybe you should vote them out in November and vote in a Democrat instead. Let me know what you think in the comments.